So we're still working on writing and solving linear equations, specifically when it involves angles. So let's just dive in and let's look at some more examples. So it says, notice for each of the following problems, write an equation and solve. These can be confusing because they have so many words involved. Don't focus on that. Read through it and start pulling things out. A pair of congruent angles are described as follows. The degree measure of one angle is 3 more than twice a number, and the other angle's degree measure is 54.5 less than 3 times the number. Determine the measure of the angles in degrees. Well, notice, again, that's very wordy, and I'll be honest, I can't see what it's saying just by reading it once. But what I do notice is it says the degree measure of one angle is 3 more than twice a number. And the other angle's degree measure is 54.5 less than 3 times the number. So they're both reliant on this number, this unknown number. So I am going to let x be the number. Now it says a pair of congruent. When we see this word congruent, that means equal. So these two angles are equal. And so a hint I'm going to give you guys is you're either talking about a triangle where all three add to 180 degrees. You're going to be talking about supplementary angles, as we'll get to next. Or we're going to say something that they're equal. We might also get to complement, which I'll talk about later when I talk about supplement. So we're talking about a pair of angles here. We're talking about two angles and they're equal to each other. So I'm going to have angle 1 and I'm going to have angle 2. Okay, x is a number. Then it says the degree measure of one angle is, so here's one of the angles here, 3 more than twice a number. Oops, remember I said that's x. 3 more than twice x. And then it says the other angle. So if I'm just talking about this part right here, one angle, 3 more than, that means addition, twice a number. 3 more than twice the number. Okay, that's way easier. So again, just pull out pieces, pull out the parts you know, it'll all come together. And the other angle's degree measure is 54. I should actually move my bracket over here. 54 degrees less than. Oh, there's less than. That's that turnaround subtraction number. 3 times the number, but I'm not saying the number, I'm saying x. 54.5 less than 3 times x. So remember, that's that turnaround number. We don't write 54.5 minus, we write this part here minus 54.5. So 3 times the number minus less than 54.5. 54.5 is less than 3x. So now, again, these are congruent. They're equal. This pair of angles is equal. So I'm going to say 3 plus 2x is equal to 3x minus 54.5. So if we go back to our rules we're supposed to follow, simplify each side. We can't add these together. They're not like terms. We can't add these together. They're not like terms. So now we are going to have to get rid of the x's on one of the sides. I'm going to choose to get rid of the smaller one. You don't have to. It doesn't matter which way you go, but I'm going to choose to get rid of this 2x here. It's a positive 2x, so I'm going to combine it with a negative 2x. Whatever I do to one side, do it to the other. Now notice I do it once to each side. I just line it up with the x's. So I bring down my 3. These give me 0. I bring down my equal sign. If I have 3 x's and I take away 2 of those x's, I'm left with 1x. And I bring down my minus 54.5. Now we're basically at a one-step equation. I need to solve for 1x. So I need to get rid of whatever's being added on or subtracted from. So I'm going to get rid of this 54.5. It's minus, so I'm going to plus it. Whatever I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. If I add these together, I get 57.5 equals x. So here is what x equals. But a piece of advice is always make sure you're answering the question being asked. Determine the measure of the angles in degrees. Well, I didn't determine the measure of the angles. I determined what x is. So we got to take this number here and plug it in for x. So I'm going to say 3 plus 2 times 57.5. And I can figure that out. I can just type it into a calculator. But that works out to be 118 degrees. The next one, 3 times x, which is 57.5, minus 54.5. If I type that into a calculator, I get 118 degrees. Hopefully that doesn't surprise us too much, because remember, we said at the beginning they were congruent, so they both needed to equal the same thing. All right, let's look at another example. So in this case, we were dealing with them being equal to each other, and that's how we set it up. In this case, it says the measure of one angle is described as 12 more than 4 times the number. It's supplement. Okay, what does supplement mean? Supplement means two angles that add to 180 degrees. So if you ever see the word supplement, it means they have to add to 180 degrees. All right. The measure of one angle described as 12 more than 4 times a number. Its supplement is twice as large. I'm focusing on this part that says a number. So I'm going to say let x be the number. Okay. And I know I'm dealing with two angles here because they're supplements. So I'm going to have angle 1 and I'm going to have angle 2. The measure of one angle is described as 12 more than 4 times x. 12 more than 4 times x. 12 more than 4 times x. Its supplement, that just tells us it's adding to 180 degrees, is twice as large. Twice means 2 times. 2 times. So it's twice as large as this one. It's 2 times 12 plus 4x. Okay, so a lot of times you don't have to really overthink it or anything. It's just 2 times whatever this is. Now, when we put these together now, it's supplement. Two angles that add to 180 degrees. I got to add these two together. I have got to go 12 plus 4x plus 2 times 12 plus 4x. And those two things together have to give us 180 degrees. Now, if you go back to our guidelines, we start by simplifying each side. Nothing we can do to simplify the 180, but on the left side here, there's a lot we can do. And it's going to start with our distributive property. I am going to rewrite this as 12 plus 4x plus 2 times 12, which is 24, plus 2 times 4x. Plus sign right there, plus sign right here. 2 times 4x is 8x. And that's got to equal 180 degrees. Now if we simplify, if I have 4x's and I have 8x's, that's 12x's, plus 12 plus 24 is 36. Notice when I do this, I am at a two-step equation. Same process, different numbers. I'm solving for 12x. I got to get rid of this 36 first. It's a positive 36, so I combine it with a negative. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I have 12x, double check to make sure that cancels, equals 180 minus 36, which is 144. Now 12 times what number equals 144? Or you could say, hey, this is multiplying. We're going to divide to get our answer. 12 divided by 12 is 1x. 144 divided by 12 is 12. So always finish up by going back to the question being asked. Find the measure of each angle in degrees. Well, I found what x equals, but I didn't find what this means. So I just have to plug it in. Use a calculator, okay? Doesn't matter. And for x here, I'm going to put a 12. 4 times 12 is 48. 48 plus 12 is 60 degrees. Now you could think of this as 2 times 60, which would be 120, or you could just plug it in. 12 plus 4 times 12. It's 48 plus 12 is 60. 2 times 60 is 120 degrees. So the measure of angle 1 is 60. The measure of angle 2 is 120. One last example. So far in the last couple of videos we've done here, we've talked about if it's a triangle, all three angles have to add to 180 degrees. Sometimes they'll talk about them being equal to each other, so we set them equal to each other. Sometimes they'll say it's a supplement, which means two angles that add to 180, and sometimes they'll say the angles are complementary. What is complementary? Complementary means they are two angles that add, that add to 90 degrees. And these are just terms that you're going to run into. Supplementary angles are two angles that add to 180 degrees. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90 degrees. Well, I have two angles then. One angle is one less than 6 times the measure of another. So I'm going to say let x be the measure of one angle. I have two angles, angle 1 and angle 2. And I'm saying, you know what? Let x be one of them. Then the other one is 1 less than that turnaround number, 6 times the measure of, well, the measure of the other is x. Okay? 1 less than 6 times x. So there's 6 times x. Less than is a turnaround one. We're going to take that one away from 6x. And they're complementary, which means they add to 90. So x plus 6x minus 1 equals 90. Simplify each side. If I look at the 90, there's nothing to simplify, but I have 1x here and 6x is here. That's 7x minus 1 equals 90. Then, oops. All right, notice we have a two-step equation here. So I'm solving for 7x. I have to get rid of the minus 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, because whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Negative 1 minus plus 1 minus 1 plus 1, that gives us 0. So we're left with 7x equals 91. 7 times what number equals 91? So I'm going to do the inverse of multiplying and divide. And if I take 7 divided by 7, that's 1x. And if I go 91 divided by 7, I get 13. So x equals 13. But as always, make sure you're answering the question being asked. Find the measure of each angle in degrees. Well, this angle here, angle 1, x is 13 degrees. And angle 2, we're going to have 6 times 13 minus 1. 6 times 13 is 78, minus 1 is 77. And if you notice, 13 plus 77 is 90 degrees, which would be the definition of a complement. All right, so we're focusing in on angle measures here, but notice that when we are setting up our equations, we're using those hint words, less than, more than, times, to help us set up the equations. We're identifying the variable, we're identifying the angles, and then we're setting up the equation, solving, using the steps we already know how to do.